You have reached the deepest depths of the internet. If it is greatness you seek, you've come to the wrong show. If it's about not wasting time, don't worry, you're never going to get your time back. If it's knowledge you seek, just be aware, any knowledge gained here is going to be minuscule. So now it's time for Accost the Field with Tony Gerdeman on the Ozone Radio Network.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a joint venture of between Facebook Live and Accost the Field. We'll go ahead and put this awesome recording on the website and run it as a podcast as well. Tom, what was the score?
77 to 31.
77-31. Buckeyes in a rout. I'm sure you feel great about it as Buckeye fans, seeing your awesome offense score 70 points. Your defense, awesome defense, scored a touchdown themselves. Couldn't possibly be any complaints. A couple of long runs that they gave up. But if you want to focus on that, Tom, I mean,
if we know anything about the Ohio State fan base, it's that they're going to be absolutely focused on the positive here. Let's, focus on the 77. We're not here to talk about. Let's do just an entire show about the offense and discuss. Right. Just focus on that.
Thinking like the 31-0 from Clemson. People didn't want to talk about the offense then. Maybe now they'll want to talk about the offense giving up 70 points. Dwayne Haskins, 5 touchdowns, over 300 yards passing. Had the interception. That entire stretch, maybe 4 or 5 straight dropbacks. He was pressured. First 2 he scrambled out of. The third one was an overthrow to Johnny Dixon, I think, and then the fourth one was the interception. That was the only time we saw him pressured, I think, in the entire game. And twice he got out of it, and twice he threw in, one incompletion, 1 interception. That was one of the questions we wanted to see answered. We weren't sure if it would be. Your thoughts on Dwayne Haskins once he got pressured?
Once he got pressured, yeah, he did look a little. That was the one time that he kind of looked like a first-time starter. Yeah. Most of the game, it was just like, this guy looks like he's been playing quarterback for years and looked very much prepared, was not at all, awestruck by the stage he was playing on.
We even said that during the game, like he looks like he's in complete control. Mm-hmm. When there was a Maryland player down, he pulled the entire Ohio State offense to the side. It's like, let's get huddled up, let's talk. He was in complete control. But that was the only little blip that I saw from him.
Mm-hmm. And from the players that we talked to post-game, most of them said, yeah, he was very much just in control the whole game. The only one who said anything different was Paris Campbell, and he basically said he was a little juiced up coming out right at the beginning of the game, mm-hmm. and then he completed that first pass, that first long touchdown. Was that a Terry McLaurin touchdown, I think? I didn't get a stat back at the end of the game.
He had one later on,
yeah,
right?
Whoever that long first touchdown was to, Paris Campbell said basically, as soon as that play happened, Haskins was in the game. He wasn't worried. He wasn't stressed. He wasn't jittery. That was all it took to settle him down. And everyone else basically said, yeah, he was fine. He was just his normal self.
When you lose track of the number of touchdowns and when and where and from how far, that's got to make you excited as Buckeye fans. You've got all these touchdowns, 10 of them from the offense, coming from all different directions. Nothing else you could possibly be upset about. Another good thing, Mike Weber didn't get the start, but clearly looked like the better guy. Over 180 yards rushing, 18 carries. What I think, and this is sort of what we expected this season, next week that could be JK. It could be 180 for JK. And they could just keep doing this back and forth. Or one day it's going to be 130 for the both of them. And we saw, I think, the very best of Mike Weber today because he hit the long one. He was doing the power stuff. He was doing some agility stuff inside, making people miss, and just looked every bit the Big Ten workhorse, outstanding back that you had hoped to see from 2016 to 2017 to 2018. He looks like he's as good as anybody in the conference.
Yeah, he had 3 touchdowns on the ground, another one through the air, which is, that's just one more little thing he did today. That certainly looked like, everyone sort of came in saying, oh, J.K. Dobbins is a potential Heisman candidate. And I mean, Mike Weber certainly looked every bit a Heisman candidate today, as did Dwayne Haskins. But I mean, like you said, that could very easily change next week, because that could be, part of that is it seemed like Weber had maybe some bigger holes than Dobbins did. It wasn't that Dobbins was missing holes. Weber had a couple of plays where they just had no one there to tackle him, which helps. If there's no one there to tackle you, that helps you get a longer run.
I think people also wanted to see more explosion from J.K. Kick it outside, something, but he kept, seemed like he just wanted to stay between the tackles. And, when Weber did that, there's a hole there. I think when we think about J.K., we think about the Indiana game, bouncing stuff out. That's not always the best tack to take. Those yards aren't always there. I was a little underwhelmed, but knowing, that's going to happen. It's still, 5 yards a carry or whatever. And a lot of times when we're talking about J.K. or Weber averaging 7 or 8 yards a carry, it's because there's a 50-yarder. Weber had his 50-yarder. That's why it was 10 yards a carry. We didn't get that from J.K. But I'm not concerned at all. There's something wrong now.
No, I didn't get that at all. I mean, I think that was just this was Mike Weber's day. There were a lot of days last year where it looked like, hey, this is J.K. Dobbins' team. He is by far the number one running back. And then the Michigan State game rolls around, and all of a sudden Mike Weber's ripping off 70-yard touchdowns, and everyone's like, whoa, 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 whoa. I think people have forgotten that, J.K. Dobbins is a very, very good player, but Mike Weber can play a little football as well.
Yeah, don't forget Mike. The receivers, I think in the first half, 8 different guys caught the ball. We saw, Weber involved on the jet sweep stuff. Ryan Day said after the game that the jet sweeps were more of something they were seeing in the defense that they thought they could attack. Successfully, they did that. They did it with Paris. They did it with KJ ran it once. Weber, maybe somebody else in there. Johnny Dixon had a touchdown. Did he have a touchdown? Not a touchdown.
Yeah, someone.
You lose track. 10 touchdowns. How are you supposed to keep, we don't have box scores in front of us. The rain washed all our papers away. Terry McLaurin over 100 yards receiving. KJ Hill was getting up there. Just, Ryan Day talked on Monday about 10 different guys, and I don't know the specific numbers, but they were right there.
Yeah, they had a ton of guys make big plays today. And you think about the fact that who are the guys who's the running back who you would have come into the year saying, this is the guy who's going to be the big play running back, and who's the wide receiver who would have said, this is the guy who's going to be the big play wide receiver? Probably J.K. Dobbins and Paris Campbell. And neither of those guys had a huge day today, and they still put up 77 points, 721, yards of total offense. I mean,
think about it.
That's pretty, if you can do that without having your best running back potentially and your best wide receiver potentially, or at least your big play guys making those plays, that really tells you something.
And when your twos, Terry McLaurin's not a 2, but Mike Weber's not a 2, but when they're that close and able to put up those kind of numbers, KJ Hill as well, and they're that close in talent level to your best players, that means you've got a lot of best players. And we saw that today. Didn't get to see as much of the tight ends as we expected, but if you expected to see much from the tight ends, that's your own fault, I think, right?
You must be new here.
This ain't spring ball, even if it looks like it outside and it looked like it in the second half and at halftime. Thayer Munford got the start at left tackle, held up well, I thought. Everybody held up well. Ryan Day said after the game they pulled up Thayer Munford to have him, just recognize his performance. It was Thayer Munford, it was Mike Weber, Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, and Mike Weber, I think.
And Weber, those three. Yeah. Just to, acknowledge their performances. So, yeah, Thayer Munford, I thought did well. Isaiah Prince, the tackle,
that was one of...
40 or 50 yards running around.
It reminded me a lot of that Orlando Pace play from the 1996 season when Orlando, I think it might have been a Michael Wiley 60, 70-yard touchdown run, and Orlando Pace is just blocking some dude 60 yards downfield, and it's like an offensive tackle is not supposed to be the one doing that. Isaiah Prince running that fumble down 60 yards back behind the line of scrimmage. That was incredibly impressive. That is good. That's good effort. That's good awareness.
Right?
That is, I would say at least one. That was a very impressive play. Munford, you talked about a little bit. You had mentioned earlier the series of plays right down by the goal line right before the interception where he was getting pressured every play. That whole sequence of plays, I was watching Thayer Munford every play because, we have talked about this before on the show. he is kind of the question mark on that offensive line, at least coming into the season. What's he going to do? And he's sort of potentially the difference maker between good season and great season. I was watching him a ton today, and he was very consistently keeping his guy off of Dwayne Haskins. Oregon State was stunting. He was, get the guy inside, get back outside. He wasn't getting fooled by stunts, by twists. It was a very impressive performance from Thayer Munford today.
Yeah, I think who knows what Oregon State is defensively. Probably not great.
I do. Bad.
Probably not great.
Bad.
But it was good to see that at least a bad defense can't make Ohio State's offensive line look bad. And I guess we should talk about the Ohio State defense. I think Oregon State's offense will be pretty good based on, Jonathan Smith, their head coach, comes from Washington where they had a good offense. Offensive coordinator comes from Colorado where they have a good offense. That running back, Pierce, he's got some wheels. Mm-hmm. He had those 2 long runs, and I'm always guilty of this where you're like, well, if you take those 2 runs away. Mm-hmm. If you take the first one away, where Antoine Jackson has him wrapped up, and just lets him go, and then he goes 80 yards, you can go ahead and put that on Bill Davis if you want. I know a lot of people do. You put it on, Jordan Fuller not being there, which we'll get to, which is, I think, significant, and Alex Grinch wasn't really interested in talking about, the impact that had. But if Antoine Jackson just wraps him up and falls over, that's 80 yards off of that box score. And even still, did they even put up 400 yards of offense?
I don't think they did.
They were
the last time,
380 or 370
the last time I
something.
Looked, it was 721 to 300
something.
So
the 31 points is bad. There's no way to sugarcoat anything, but you don't have your 2 best players in the back 7. Tough Borland played a series or 2. Jordan Fuller was out with the hamstring. So this wasn't really the Ohio State defense, but still, there's concerns.
Oh, yeah, without a question, because that was not just, we have a slight downgrade at 2 spots, so therefore, we gave up, a couple extra 20-yard plays. They got gashed a couple times. And you're right, I mean, that is a good running back because he was outrunning Ohio State's defense, and Ohio State's defense is not slow. So you gotta kind of tip your hat to them a little bit. But, yeah, there are concerns on the back end. What was really interesting to me was, on the defensive line rotated. I mean, we probably saw at least 12, 14 different defensive linemen in there. It was just about everyone on scholarship except for, a handful of guys, like Javonte Jean-Baptiste.
And him and Malik Barrow.
Malik Barrow, who's injured.
That was it?
And that might have been it as far as guys who are scholarship defensive linemen. And they played some walk-ons at the end, too.
Yeah.
So you had, 12, 14, maybe 16 defensive linemen play. There were, until the game was completely decided, I think I saw 4 linebackers out there. I think it was Harrison, Werner, Browning, Borland, pretty much exclusively. And then defensive backs, it was your starting 4, Winton Pryor at safety, Arnett, Sheffield, and then Okuda.
That was it.
Those 5, really until almost the end of the game. We didn't see Marcus Williams until the very end. We didn't see Sean Wade on defense. Or on special teams, but not on defense until very late in the game.
Towards the end, it was Amir Reap and Brendan White in there when, when at the same time, Dante Booker came in, Keandre Jones came in, Justin Hilliard came in. Hilliard and Browning, they're holding this place for Tough Borland. I think Tough, obviously, we talked to him after the game, and he wants to play, and this is difficult for him. I don't want to say tough for him. It's difficult for him. He needs to get back based on, you can only see so much from up there and it goes quick. But I think I know they miss him. And I'm not sure if Browning beat out Justin Hilliard, we talked about it on Accost the Field last week. Was it by default because of injuries? Justin Hilliard played a little bit at the end. I'm thinking they might need to revisit something there at middle linebacker if Tough Borland isn't ready to go again, because how often did you hear Baron Browning's name?
Did he have a tackle today?
He had 4 at one point when I looked at the box score in the second half, because that's when I made the joke where Isaiah Prince better not finish with more tackles than your starting middle linebacker. So I looked, and that's when I saw Browning had 4. But they might want to, and I'm sure they will, revisit what's going on there.
Yeah, I don't think that's a settled deal. And the fact that they didn't rotate the linebackers at all makes me think there probably is something of a separation between the ones and the twos, unless they really, really strongly feel they have to just rep the ones just to get them more experience because they're all younger. But
and maybe Hilliard is banged up.
Maybe, but I mean, he played, and they didn't. I think if guys were kind of nicked up, it might.
But Tough played too.
Tough Borland played. He didn't play a lot, but if he was willing, able to play today a little bit, you would certainly think, okay, he can at least play half the snaps maybe next week, and then that you kind of ramp him up because you're going to beat Rutgers next week. I don't want to spoil anything for anyone, but a true
and this
freshman,
is Tom the Hater saying this.
A true freshman quarterback coming in here. Unless his name is Matt Barkley and he's surrounded by USC skill talent and defense,
and
you're not
playing
going to come
against a terrified head coach,
right? Yeah, you're not going to come in here and win. So they have the luxury of kind of ramping things up a little bit next week, but I mean the pool gets pretty deep. You're only 2 weeks away from playing in Texas against TCU, and TCU I don't know what they played Southern or something, and just they did to Southern what Ohio State did to. Whoever the heck this was, Oregon State.
Oregon A&M.
I watched much of the game. TCU is going to be a defense. TCU's defense is going to present a pretty significant challenge for the Ohio State offense. The question is how much can TCU score enough against the Ohio State defense to make it a game? Before the season, I would have said no. I would have said Ohio State's offense scores 24 points, they win that game. Now.
56-49.
I mean, let's see what it looks like with Jordan Fuller and Tough Borland out there, but that's a little more of a concern now than it probably was earlier this week.
Yeah, you get Tough Borland back. He brings everybody. There's more of a sense of calm. Gets people in the right place. They say the same thing of Jordan Fuller. Gets the secondary in the right place. And I don't know how often they were in the right place. On those screens. They got hit bad. I asked Alex Grinch after the game, how difficult was it for Isaiah to move over from strong safety, which, he had been battling Jocelyn Went for, and he had probably almost won the job 55-45, to then move over to free safety. And he's basically, it's the same position. It just one lines up on the wide side, one lines up on the short side. So you have all of the same assignments depending on who's on your side of the field. But it's still going to be difficult to just switch over like that.
It is, and you've got some different responsibilities. One is going to have a little more in terms of covering the slot guy. It's more man responsibility. The other one's kind of more playing that center field position. But you did have two positions, both of those safety positions. To your point, were not probably the guy who would have been
right.
would have been considered. Yeah, would not have been considered the first place top of the depth chart guy. Because Fuller's out, so you move Pryor over. So you have the number 2-ish guy and the number 2-ish guy. Yeah. So it's maybe 1B and 1B in both of those spots. But that if they're playing a little bit better and they've had more reps at each of those spots during the camp. Maybe they make, one more of those plays. The safeties make one more play. I mean, there were some not great angles in the back of the defense tonight, and so you have one of those. You have Antoine Jackson. You have that one tackle, and all of a sudden this game, all of a sudden this is 77-17, and it looks exactly like everyone was sort of anticipating it. Right. So, I mean, you can't. This is an ifs and buts and candies and nuts thing, but you can't completely wipe it away. But
I think what it also does, and not to interrupt you. There's a lot of confirmation bias, where you're expecting to see the linebackers struggle, or you're expecting to see trouble. I don't even know if anybody was really expecting to see trouble at safety. You just did.
Yeah.
But when a guy has an 80-yarder and a 78-yarder, you're going to immediately latch onto the linebackers not doing their jobs, and then you see Jocelyn Went chasing, and not catching up. Jeff Okuda not catching up. So you wonder how many plays went wrong that would have made this a 67-point game, and that's what the coaches will find out, but they're still glaring at this point.
And one thing that's kind of interesting was you didn't really see any of that in the passing game. It was all on the ground. So,
in the screens, but that's all.
Yeah, but it was not. You didn't have downfield passing. hitting for big plays.
That's because Jeff Okuda kept interfering, although those were iffy. That's just a joke.
The first one was pretty legitimate. The second one was a little questionable.
But Damon Arnett, Kendall Sheffield were fine. No coverage, downfield coverage stuff. But anytime they tried to probably look downfield, Nick Bosa, Draymond Jones, they were. I mean, the poor guys. All three quarterbacks, the two quarterbacks had no chance. And Luton only threw like one pass. Then they brought the backup in. And they just kept killing that guy.
I think that Luton may have had he may have gotten dinged on that first drive because he started the game and then just was like gone. And I didn't.
It's pretty bad when you get benched after a completion. Like you throw one pass, it's complete. All right, get out of here. You suck.
Yeah, he may have gotten dinged on the head or something during the early portion of the game. But yeah, I mean the pass rush for sure. I mean we talked about the back seven having some questions. There were really no questions among the top two lines of the defensive line. I mean, the defensive line went super deep, and they, eventually you ran into guys that didn't look like they were quite ready for prime time.
Even Jayshon Cornell.
Jayshon Cornell had a great game. Yeah. The top four defensive ends all played well. Tyreek Smith, true freshman, we saw him a lot in that Rushman package, moving on the inside. He looked, he didn't. I don't think he had a sack, but he looked solid when he was in there.
Tyler Friday had a nice pressure.
Yep, Tyler Friday looked good. The depth on the defensive line is ludicrous. I mean, just ludicrous this year.
And you don't even need it because Draymond Jones and Nick Bosa are so good. Having depth behind those guys, it's not fair. It's like it's like double steak. Like one steak is fine. We don't need a steak on top of it. No. Let's put another steak on top of it. And then you got Jones and Bosa are double steaks. Now you put them together. Now they're like quadruple steaks. And eventually that's almost too much.
I'm just thinking out loud right now, but I think I just came up with an idea for a signature entree at Beef and Chugs, the new bar and steakhouse on campus.
A quadruple steak?
Yes, quadruple steak. The thing that the defensive line depth gives you is I don't think we saw Nick Bosa after the rain delay, which is if you have the ability to take your star defensive end and not risk him slipping and pulling a muscle or tearing something or whatever on a wet, slippery field, that's a huge luxury. Because, I mean, the game was no longer really in doubt at that point. It's 42-14 at halftime.
Draymont was out the second half, too.
Yeah,
so
and
take those guys off the field, you give up 17 points. Is that really a shock?
Right. Yeah, because those guys, if this is 2 weeks from now in Texas and you're playing in a dome and you're playing a good opponent, those guys are playing 60 minutes. Now, you have the ability to sub them out situationally, keep them fresh throughout the game. Because you run wave after wave after wave of defensive linemen at an offensive line. The offensive line is not subbing out guys with a line change like a hockey team. So you're just throwing body after body after body after these guys. And eventually that's going to wear them down.
Yeah, and you take those two guys off, it almost feels like we're excusing away, or at least feels like I am excusing away the way the defense looked. But I think these are legitimate things. Like Draymond Jones is not on the field. Nick Bosa is not on the field. Those are two of the 5-10 best defensive linemen in college football. So, we talked about the level of comparative level on offense of the skill players. It's not the same with those guys because they're so good. I mean, these are first-round NFL talent. I don't know necessarily on offense with the receivers that you've got that. Well, you take those guys off, and you saw what happens when Antoine Jackson is one of the guys that gets put in, hug, let go, touchdown. That's not Draymond Jones. That's not Robert Landers. Chase Young had some issues with offsides. He was eager to get in there. There are reasons not to be as concerned about the 31 points, even though it's still Oregon State, really, but Buckeyes covered, so I'm sure a lot of Buckeye fans are happy.
Our friends in the desert, as Brent Musburger used to say. Hello to Treebuck on Facebook Live, and hello to LT Ironman Tran. If you guys have any questions, feel free to ask us in the comments. We'll be happy to answer them. Offer not valid if you're listening to this as a podcast sometime on Sunday. So,
don't bother. Yeah. Don't bother. Sorry.
I mean, you can leave it in the comments, but we won't answer them nearly as immediately as we will for people on Facebook Live.
We're not re-recording to answer the questions after the podcast. We've already recorded.
You can ask
Not
us,
again.
You can ask us questions for later the podcast we do later this week.
That's
not
right.
This one.
No.
So next week, Rutgers. I mean, I'm assuming you're going to see probably something similar to this. The defensive talent on Rutgers is better than what we saw out of Oregon State today, but the offense probably is not going to be as good. And I don't know exactly how many of their players are going to be suspended for that game because of the credit card thing that's going on. I know there were 6, I think, guys suspended, including some kind of key players for them. I don't know if that's still going to be lingering next week.
I also don't think we'll see the offense as long as we did because they kept Dwayne Haskins in the game because Oregon State kept scoring. If Rutgers isn't scoring, then they'll be satisfied with 49 from Haskins in the offense, and they can put Tate Martell in there. So I think we both expected Martell to play more, but there was like a 28-point lead for so long that they kept having to make it 35 and then 42, and when they finally felt safe, they brought in Tate Martell. I don't know that Rutgers will have that same offensive effect. Grinch told me that he expects Jordan Fuller to be back this week, so that will help. Tough Borland, obviously, 1 week better, but I would not expect. I did set my DVR to record Rutgers, and I'm sure I'm going to get a letter from the cable company being like, dude, nobody records Rutgers, but I did, so I'll check them out, see what freshman quarterback Arthur Sikowski did, see what kind of running game they've got going, what kind of weapons on the outside, and see, is there anything they can replicate? Because it's not like there's a running quarterback running around making life miserable. They attacked Ohio State with passing quarterbacks and then a fast running back, and I'm sure there's some skill at Rutgers comparable to Oregon State. There has to be.
Right. This is very low-level Power 5 conference.
In your opinion.
I mean, in the opinion of standings and statistics, yes.
In the opinion of fact.
This is the level of talent is probably going to be a little better next week from Rutgers than it is from Oregon State, especially on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, Chris, you have a not very talented Oregon State defense coming off of one of the most horrific defensive seasons in memory, with a new coach who is an offensive coach, so that's not been his big focus, as opposed to Rutgers, where this is the third year for Chris Ash. He's a defensive guy. He's had time to bring in a little bit of talent, get his system in place. I think you're going to, the offense next week could be horrific for Rutgers. Who do they have this week? They have a FCS
Texas State.
Texas State, that's right.
Bobcats?
Yeah, that sounds right. Is that the Larry Coker team? No, that was UTSA.
Everett Withers?
That actually might be Everett Withers. I think you might.
Look at me.
Look at you.
Look
at you knowing stuff.
Look at me.
All right. Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have a little bit more of a challenge next week. I don't anticipate seeing 70 points again next week from Ohio State. I certainly don't anticipate seeing 30 points again next week.
What about over-under 70?
Over-under total 70? I'd probably go under that. It seems like it's going to be 40-something to
17, 14?
You give me 49-10, something like that, maybe.
Yeah, I don't see Rutgers scoring 17. You're right. 10-ish.
10-ish, yeah.
Unless they have a fast running back, then I'd say 59 to 42-ish.
Yeah, I don't think anyone in the Ohio State coaching staff wants to watch another one of those, because Urban Meyer's going to be around this week, starting on Monday, or starting I guess tomorrow, right?
Monday.
Monday. So yeah, Urban Meyer's back on Monday. I think he's going to let them know that was not that's not up to the standard that is expected from this team on defense.
Funnily enough, Alex Grinch knew that without being told by the head coach that this is not up to the Ohio State standard, and even with the injuries and with all of the new freshmen playing, surprisingly, it's not a satisfactory performance. Not that we expected it to be, but it also gives them a whole heck of a lot to look at, to work on, to improve upon. Nobody in the locker room that they're no longer in is feeling great about this. You covered, you went by 40-something, 6. I'm good at math. But, everybody sees the 31. Mm-hmm. That's what they see. And, Dwayne Haskins, what does he see? He sees his interception. What does J.K. Dobbins see? He sees 4.8 yards per carry. Mike Weber, I'm sure he'll be all right. He'll be able to get over this game. Paris Campbell, 2 or 3 catches for 20-some yards. Terry McLaurin, fine. He's going to be happy. Ben Victor, nowhere.
Yeah, someone asked me at one point on Twitter if Ben Victor was playing, and he was, because you saw him blocking. I don't think he had a reception today. I don't believe so.
And he was out there with the freshman at the end.
That is one of the more interesting subplots of this season thus far already. You saw him on Instagram all August, shining and scoring touchdowns on guys, and scoring touchdowns on starting defensive backs. It was him on Jeff Okuda a few times. I mean, he looked on their Instagram post. He certainly seemed to be destined for a big season. And then the depth chart comes out last week. He's not first team. He's not, or with Austin Mack, he's second team. And the distribution of playing time today certainly reinforced that he is not first team right now.
And there is no Jalen Harris.
I don't think we saw Jalen Harris. I don't believe we did.
I'm going to assume he's banged up then. And
that could be.
And that would be why, maybe why Victor had to play so much at the end when, it's all blowout and you're just playing guys who don't play. Maybe he's the last Elijah Gardner, I don't think we saw at all.
I saw him, but I might have just been thinking about warm-ups. You might be right. Yeah, we might not have seen Elijah Gardner.
So, maybe there's some other reasons, but I don't even think he had a pass thrown his way.
I don't think so. I'm just thinking back to the box score right now, and I don't believe.
Of course, it would help if he was Dwayne Haskins' roommate.
Well, yeah,
like Austin Mack.
As you may know from listening to this podcast once or twice, Dwayne Haskins and Austin Mack are roommates, and we saw that connection today. So exclusive must credit Accost the Field.
So all in all, I think it was a successful day with plenty to focus on and fix, but I don't think it's this drastic sky is falling because it's a missed tackle. It's probably a blown assignment by a linebacker filling the wrong gap on the other long run. Second half, 17 points given up without Nick Bosa, without Draymond Jones. That's not going to happen in a real game. So I think I'm not going to say there's reason for optimism. I mean, you should be optimistic. It's Ohio State. You should always expect to win. I just don't think it's necessarily this reason for this cloud of pessimism right now, especially once everybody gets healthy and gets back. I'm not trying to excuse everything away. I just don't think it's as bad as maybe some think it is.
That's probably true. You've got the guys missing. You've got Boyle missing. You've got Jordan Fuller missing. The 2 touchdowns in the second half came boom, boom, back to back. The first was like the first play of each drive after the hour-long rain delay, which, I mean, both teams are playing in it, but you saw right after that break, it was just Ohio State long touchdown, Oregon State long touchdown, Ohio State long touchdown, Oregon State long touchdown. 4 touchdowns in the first 4 minutes and 50-something seconds of the second half. So, I mean, you may have had a focus issue there because, I mean, you do go in the locker room, it's 42-14.
Right.
You at home, I'm sure, were thinking, hey, they've got this game in hand. So, therefore, it wouldn't be completely out of line for some of those players out there to be saying, okay, well, we've got these guys now.
And Ryan Day even said they were. Did he say scared?
He said there was some stuff they were a little nervous about. That how are they going to come back out? How are they going to come back out after the long rain delay? And I think that it's fair to attribute maybe some of the issues to that as well. But I mean, this is exactly what a lot of coaches want in that first game. Yeah. You get a win, you get a comfortable win, you get to play a bunch of your players, you get to see your depth, but you also have a whole lot of stuff to work on. So it'll be real interesting to see what the defense looks like next weekend against Rutgers.
Yep. All right, let's go ahead and wrap it up. Anything else from you?
I certainly hope not.
All right. Thank you all for listening, for watching. This has been Accost the Field, broadcast live on Facebook Live. And then we will see you all on Monday for Sleepcast, and then the week just starts all over again. We'll be talking to coaches and players Monday, Tuesday, probably Wednesday this week as well. So plenty more coming at the Ozone. So check it all out, and thank you.
Well, she threw away the motel key. I wish it never meant nothing to me. Say you will, now say you will. right. We could steal a car and leave.